Welcome to Beyond the Chutes, is presented by ParaSight Systems. I'm your host, Doug Simcox, and I hope that you're having a great day, staying safe and enjoying the beautiful winter weather. Today I'm recording in Brevard, New York. BTC is on the road again. We are up here at the Rawhide Ranch at the recording studio. I'm looking out the window to about 3/4 inch of snow. Beautiful up here for me. First snow of the year. I love first snows, and not enough to make anything dangerous, not enough that anybody's got to do anything more than maybe sweep. But sitting at the table, probably somebody's already swept his driveway, is Mr. Mike Swearingen. He's from Nunde, New York, about 15 minutes away from where we're sitting. He's a 4-event cowboy that is qualified for the IFR in all 4 of his events. Of course, he was a bareback rider, saddle bronc rider, steer wrestler, and a bull rider. So welcome, Mike. Welcome to BTC.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for having me here. First off,
Yeah.
I'm not in Nunde anymore.
Oh, you're not?
I haven't been there for years.
Oh, my goodness.
No, I'm in Wyoming, New York, and instead of 3/4 inch of snow, we got about 5 or 6 inches.
About
of snow.
5 inches of
Yeah,
snow.
and
Okay.
I don't do any shoveling or plowing. I just drive through it until I can't, till it drifts up too much. And
Okay.
but
Well,
yeah.
no wonder you haven't been answering my mail.
Yeah, the horse can't get up the hill.
And no longer in Nunde. So Wyoming, New York. Yeah. I'll make a change in your bio here. Before we get started, I've got a listener question that came in actually out of Iowa. One of our listeners, and she always sends in great questions. She was listening to a podcast, and somebody was talking about buying their PRCA permit, filling their permit, getting their card. What's that? She said, how much does a card cost, and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, the PRCA has a setup with their card and their permit system. First off, once you turn 18, you're eligible to buy a permit, and that permit is it allows you to go pretty much to a lot of local rodeos. You don't really have a chance too often to get entered into the big rodeos, but it allows these young guys to kind of get started if they want to. Now, back when I got my permit, they had just opened the PRCA to the right to work law, had taken the PRCA out of restricting cowboys from belonging to more than one association. Yeah. So anyway, when that showed up, I bought my permit, and the restriction on the permit is you had to, at that time, you had to win at least $1,500.
Okay.
Put on your permit. Now, it didn't matter how long you took in that year to put that $1,500 on it.
Yeah.
But once you got to $1,500, you had the option to buy your PRCA card.
Didn't have to.
You didn't have to.
Okay.
Because you would still be considered a rookie. So a lot of these guys that are running up and down the road on their permits,
Yeah.
they might win $60,000, $70,000, like some of these bareback riders and stuff in going to the NFR.
Yeah.
They've got a ton of money on their permit.
Okay.
They wouldn't be able to go to the NFR
Because it doesn't count.
because it
it's
doesn't
not
count.
permit. Okay, it's not
But-
their card.
Right. And once you buy your card,
Yeah.
that would be your rookie year
Okay.
of buying your card, not
Okay.
you had the permit.
I see.
So once you fill your permit
Yeah.
and then purchase your card,
Yeah.
and at that time the card was like $500 when
Okay.
I bought mine.
Okay.
So I filled the first rodeo I went to. I filled my permit because I worked so many events.
Okay. Okay.
No, I had a good rodeo, good weekend. It was more. I went to more than one PRCA rodeo at that time, but once I filled my permit,
Yeah.
I went ahead and got my card because I wasn't interested in trying to take a rookie run at anything.
Right,
You know, I'm
right.
I'm out trying to make a living.
Yeah.
And so that part of it didn't affect me. So I went ahead and got my card. And once I got my card,
Yeah.
that allowed me to try to enter a lot of the bigger rodeos
Okay.
like Denver and
Okay.
Fort Worth and some
Okay.
of the Houston and some of them. So on the permit, yes, they will take a certain amount, but I mean, a very, very small percentage of permit holders will ever get to enter a big rodeo at that time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And even though, and I believe this is true for your nephew Call, He's riding under permit still in the PRCA, and I don't believe your points count towards final qualifications either.
No, they don't. Yeah. And once this year is over, once you got that much on your permit, you can't go back and get another permit.
No.
You have to buy your car.
You have to buy a car.
So that pushes you into your rookie status.
Okay.
After that first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he's qualifying for all the finals. His points come. So if when you got your permit, you filled it in a weekend, and you immediately buy your card, does the permit dollars that you've won come onto your card?
That I can't 100% honestly answer. I don't believe it does. I think you start over from day one. But I could very well be wrong with that. It's been a long time, and it never really concerned me.
Yeah,
because I wasn't really looking to go to the NFR at that point.
Sure. And were there any rules other than paying your annual dues to keep your PRCA card? In other words, I bought my card. I'm not going to any PRCA rodeos this year. I don't win any money. Anything the PRC says, or just says, buy another card for next year?
Yeah, that's pretty much buy another card.
So no minimum rodeo requirements or anything like that?
No. The only thing that they did have, and you had a maximum that they had a maximum of rodeos that would count towards the NFR, count towards your points, would be a maximum of 100 rodeos. So if you were going to wind up going to 125 rodeos, then you had to figure out which rodeos you wanted to count. But 99% of it is just the first 100 rodeos.
And did you have to declare the rodeos, or could you look at it at the end and go, I got 125 rodeos, count these 100?
I think you had to declare them.
Really?
I believe that if you did not want those points to count, you had to tell them that, or you didn't want that rodeo to count for
before
points.
you competed.
Yeah, I think when you entered, as far as I understand, I never in the PRCA, I never went to that many. I did in the IPRA, but they didn't have a rule like that. So.
Okay, and then on the rules, we talk about a maximum. I know the circuits at one point introduced a minimum rule that to qualify for the circuit finals.
Correct. Yeah, there was a minimum there was a percentage in there of how many rodeos were in that circuit. There was a percentage deal, but there was also a hard fixed number. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first frontier, you had to go to 15 rodeos in the PRCA in order to even qualify to be eligible to go to the circuit finals. Yeah. And that was kind of a number deal that we had to play with.
And 15 in the Northeast is tough.
It's tough. And the thing of it is with Cowtown going on, Cowtown had a rodeo every weekend after Memorial Day. And up through Labor Day. Yeah. So every Saturday that was a PRCA rodeo. So they had all those account, and then you had some of the road shows. There weren't a lot of them. Bob Barnes come back and did a lot of
Gary and that sort of thing you had around. Glens Falls in the fall.
Right.
But if you were going to make your 15, you had to go to Cowtown.
You had to go to Cowtown a handful of times minimum. You bet. Just to get your numbers. Money wasn't any. It didn't matter. You could
bet. Be. And a great rodeo, right? Cowtown.
You bet.
But it's how many hours from the house?
Yeah, and it a lot of times it was out of the way.
Yeah.
It wasn't so many hours. It's only like I could probably get down there in 6-7 hours.
Okay.
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
If you're hauling horses, it would take a little longer because you didn't have very many good roads to go to, go down there. Yeah. So going to Cowtown wasn't that big of a deal as far as getting there, but it was so far out of the way with what I was doing, going to multiple associations, APRA, IPRA, and that, and it was usually out of the way, but I would make sure if I was going to try to go to the finals, I would get down there a few times. But it was, and then I also know from competing as long as I did before they opened that up, the competition gets stagnant. I learned this when I was down in Florida, and I was down there a lot, and you're riding with the same bunch of guys, and you're going to the same stock, same this, same that. It would actually get you to the point where you get a little bit lazy and a little bit, I don't know. It wasn't so much lazy or riding, maybe so much, but you
complacent.
Complacent. It's a good. That's the word.
Really?
And
Yeah.
And you need to go to other places to get against a bunch of good wolves.
Yeah.
And there ain't a person that goes up and down the road that knows. Doesn't know the fact that you're only as good as your competition, and everybody knows that. So if you go to the same thing over and over and over again, you're just gonna ride like the rest of them. I did that in Florida, and I learned the hard way that, doggone, I got to get out of here.
Okay, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of my questions, we always talk about the road, and our listeners love the road and the travel stories. I don't know if you heard the Dale Yerrigan one where he left the horses at the gas station.
Yeah.
That's the wildest one. Now, I've heard people getting left at the truck stops.
Well, we've done that.
But what was amazing about that story, he didn't know what exit they left him at. So they put the gas back in the truck and drove back until they had about that much gas. Amazing story. But so to the concept of getting stagnant or getting complacent, it's easy. All right, here's a question. The road can be tough, right? The road can be grueling. But if I just stay around here, let's say I can do it and make the finals and everything, but my longest run's an hour to the rodeo.
Yeah.
But I can be somewhere all the time compared to I'm going to put together a run that might take me 6 hours to get the first one, 4 hours further to get the second one, make my big loop, and by the time I'm done, it's 18 hours to get back to the house. Mm-hmm. Which do you choose?
I was choosing the tough one. I was on the road constantly.
Did the road inspire? Did the road bring an energy? Did the road? We're going to talk about making a living full time in professional rodeo, Mike. That's how you paid your bills. Mm-hmm. Was there an energy that was created by the big distances and the camaraderie of going down the road? Maybe that's another element.
There was, and that's the whole thing. We didn't have enough rodeo when I first really started rodeoing a little bit. Yeah. The closest rodeo around here was 6-8 hours away.
Really?
I mean, outside of Attica, and some of the hometown ones. But once I started traveling a little bit and going with some of the Loretta Lynn Longhorn Rodeos and stuff like that, they were at least 6 to 8 hours away. So in order to get to anything, we had to travel. So that was just when I started. It was just kind of the way it was. Yeah. But I can remember some of the times, and I traveled with some of the best. Jack Wiseman was the handiest man to get around. If you wanted to go to rodeos, you crawled in his truck. Right. If they were playing the national anthem somewhere, he was going to be there. Okay. In the IPRA anyway. But I can remember talking to Jack. There was a rodeo. We were in it wasn't Hartshorn, Oklahoma. We were down in the southern part of Oklahoma, and the southeast corner. And there was a rodeo in Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is probably about 150, 200 miles north of Duluth, Minnesota. And I asked Jack, because I was thinking about entering it. I was pounding the highway pretty hard. I had a horse, my wife was barrel racing and stuff. So I said, Jack, you going to go to Thunder Bay? He said, no. He says, it's too far. You can't make it. And I had already looked at the map. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't? He said, you can't make it. He said, it's not enough time to get up there. Mm-hmm. And now we traveled with Jack. There was always 8 or 9 guys in the truck. So we always had lots of drivers if you needed drivers.
Wheels never stopped.
Wheels didn't stop except for you was going to fill up fuel and even eating. You better be grabbing a snack out of the quick shack there.
Nobody sat down
You don't sit down and eat a lunch, or supper. You grab something and go. Yeah. So I got to looking at the book, and I said, you know what? I think I can do it. Yeah. I said, Red Dolphin, same thing. Red had been, him and Jack were probably started more big trucks going up and down the road because Clarence LeBlanc and everybody kind of, well, back then had full trucks. So I asked Red, I says, what do you think about going? Hey, I ain't going up there. That's way too far. You'll never make it. You can't do it. This was from a Friday night to a Saturday night.
Okay. So you had, in theory, 20 some hours, because you're not leaving the rodeo till midnight, probably Friday night.
Right.
Got to be there by probably 6 o'clock the next day.
I think it was a 7:30 performance.
So you better roll in by 6.
Now, the only thing that I looked at that whole thing, I mean, mileage I kind of knew, and I kind of knew basically how many miles you could go in an hour, and all that, the math part of it. The only thing that saved me on that whole deal, pretty much, that I figured, it was the same time zone.
Okay.
Because you have to take effect time zone changes, because you know, if you're going from east to west, you're gaining an hour, and if you're going the other way, you're going to lose an hour. But it was in the same time zone. Yeah. So I got to looking at it. I said, doggone it, I'm going to enter it. And we took off from Oklahoma and down there, and we drove, and it was rainy and foggy, pulling the trailer, and there was no interstates for a long time getting up out of Oklahoma.
So two lane roads.
And in the mountains along the edge.
Through the town, stoplights, all that sort of thing.
But so we kind of, once I got out and got onto the main highways and stuff and started, I said, we're going to make it. I think we're going to make it. Well, the border crossing up there in Canada, we get up there about, I don't know, I'm up there, I'm guessing probably around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's nobody at the border crossing to check you in. Now, we're hauling horses, so when you cross into Canada, you have to have all your health papers and all that.
Everything gets inspected.
Everything gets inspected, and you have to have the right paperwork. You have to tell them how many saddles you got, and all this and that, because they don't want, stuff going back and forth. Well, anyway, we get up there. Nobody's there. There's
nobody at the border.
Nobody at the border. I could have drove right on through.
Yeah, and if you had,
and if I had and turned around coming back out, that would have been a problem.
Because they wouldn't have had you a record going in.
Right, right. So I sat there for 45 minutes before somebody showed up at the border.
Really?
Because it was just on a little 2-lane road coming up out of Duluth, and that road that goes on up through there.
Yeah.
So once we left there, I was nervous because so we pounded up there, and we pulled in when the grand entry was getting ready to go in.
Oh my goodness! And for our listeners, you're in the first event.
Yeah.
The grand entry, you best have already had your rigging on your horse.
Yeah. So the girls were all lining up and go in there, and I'm laying on the horn, letting the announcer know, and we're getting up there, but we made it, and. I had a good rodeo. Yeah. And
but pretty darn
but it was,
close.
That was a hard trip.
Did you ever, in those traveling situations, and I mean, thank goodness, no flat tires, no mechanical issues,
exactly.
No horses that you had to get out and walk a bunch.
Well, I did have horses.
You still stopped, but no horse issues.
Right.
At that particular time, let's say. Did you ever? Dumb question, because I know you had to have. You roll in after your first or possibly second, because it's bareback bronc riding, typically steer wrestling, and then some other events, and then saddle bronc, and then bull riding. Mm-hmm. Did you ever roll into a rodeo and not make your first one or two events?
I may have had one that I didn't make the bareback riding in.
Yeah.
I don't, because I had so many close calls, it wasn't funny. I mean, I've had guys I pull in there, and we pulled up to Cape Girardeau, Missouri one time.
Yeah.
Coming from down south, and I pulled in. The grand entry was coming out. And
your horses
were loaded. And so I had some good friends of mine, calf roper, come out. He come out to the truck. I come in blowing the horn. He comes out to the truck, and I take my rigging bag, I bail out.
Yeah.
I had somebody else kind of half driving, so I think I had my chaps on.
You did.
And spurs, I might have had that done. But
put this on. I'll be up there.
He took the rigging, run out there. They got the rigging put on, and as they were finishing the grand entry, and kind of going up, the contractor, the chute boss, says, "Mike, you're first."
Oh, are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And
Were you taped up? Did you have your glove on or any of that
no,
yet?
I didn't have my glove on.
No,
and they
no.
and I had to pull my rigging because I wouldn't let anybody else pull my rigging. I pulled my own and did it by myself most of the time. So they had it on, so I had to pull it. Well, I'm pulling it while they're doing the national anthem and all that.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as that national anthem's open, they're wanting that gate to be cracked.
You bet.
Now, the reason I believe that he wanted me to be first, even though that I've hustled and, and did everything I could do, I had Bucking Horse of the Year.
Okay. And they wanted to feature
and they wanted to feature him, and they knew that they could throw me off of him.
Makes sense.
Because I was in such a panic.
Yeah.
Right? Basically, that's what they thought.
For sure.
Some of them deals made me stronger under pressure.
I was going to ask. Less time to prepare. Less time to think, right?
Yep. And so I wound up winning the bareback riding.
Okay.
And for that weekend, and it was that was I think the first performance even. But anyway, I just knew then that under that type of pressure, and that was fairly early as I was going in my not real early in my career, but when I was really getting at it, and really trying to win the world.
You bet.
And so that just proved to me that pressure is, if I don't let pressure get to me, I can do as good or better than normal.
Okay.
So it was a good learning curve.
Okay. More of that mental aspect of
and
rodeo.
there was a lot of them. Actually, Jim Zinser held up a rodeo. Me and Sam and Kenny Phillips. There was a whole truckload. I think there were 7 of us in the truck.
Wow.
And they had advertised in the book of the rodeo starting an hour later than what the committee had advertised the rodeo to start.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you thought it was going to start at 8. It starts at 7.
Well, it was an afternoon deal.
Okay.
So I think it was advertised in the book at 3, and they started at 2.
Okay.
So they're starting the rodeo. We're half the rodeo.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny Phillips is in the bareback and saddle bronc riding.
Yeah.
Sam was in the bronc riding. I was in the bareback riding, and the steer wrestle.
Yeah.
They don't have a rodeo.
Right.
We're the rodeo coming in. And
and you called ahead on your cell phone and told them where you were?
Yeah, right. We didn't take the time to stop at a payphone at a truck stop because we didn't have cell phones back then.
So they just kind of held up and they just kind of trusted you were coming?
I think they realized that that's what. So the announcer, which I think was Jerry Bellis at the time, he was announcing the rodeo. Jerry knew what was going on.
Okay.
So they kept putting it off. Well, 45 minutes they held that thing off, saying, we pulled in. Well, I pulled in the gate, and that Chris Ledoux song where the guy runs past the gate guy, the photo finish song, that was us.
You were living it.
And the guy's trying to stop us from coming in, and I'm laying on the horn, and I ain't slowed up one bit. And I'm blowing the horn coming because you come in on the backside of a track.
Yeah, okay.
You come in around the backside of the track. Well, they see us pull in the gate, and I'm laying on the horn because I realized the horses, everybody's lined up for the grand entry and everything. Well, they held it up, and then that's what Jim said. We're going to split the difference.
Yeah.
We're going to start at 2:30.
I see.
And not 3 o'clock. And they kind of explained to the people, well, once they seen us, and he just fired that thing up.
and
the thing about that rodeo is we're starting to get a little bit weak on rough stock contestants.
Yeah.
So Jim started doing a 2-header.
Yeah.
But you could do the 2-header outside of not the PRCA would never do this, but they decided to give you your 2-head the same performance.
Oh, they did.
So
wow.
When we get there,
wow,
everybody had to get on 2-head of each event.
All right,
not in the bulldogging, but in the rough side.
All right, so let me back up here because our listeners and myself, I want to catch up here. So you go into a rodeo, and based on the number of days of performance of the rodeo, number of contestants, and all that, the rodeo itself can declare, okay, it's a 2-header, meaning you've got to ride 2 head of livestock. Typically, if it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whatever, typically you're going to ride Friday night. You might get back up Saturday night for your 2nd head. And the rule got passed, is what I'm hearing, that said, no, you can ride both those head on Friday night.
Correct.
So you would go back to back in the bareback riding, let's say, or would they do a section of barebacks, go on, and then do another section later in the performance, or was it?
I think that's the way Jim did it because the way, and Sam might remember this, but I think they bucked a section of bareback horses because me and Kenny were both
Yeah.
in both the saddle bronc and the bareback riding. So we had 4 head we had to get on, and then I had to bulldog a steer in between the saddle bronc and bareback riding. But so I think they would buck bareback horses.
Yeah.
They'd yank our riggings off.
Yeah.
We'd put have our saddles on the saddle bronc, get on them, and then they would go through and maybe steer wrestle, and then they come
Which
back.
you had to get down to that.
Right, I had to take all my spurs and everything.
So did you have to make a choice then on the 2-header for the steer wrestling? That each rodeo was different. There might have been enough contestants, so you might not have had to run 2 head of steers.
Right.
Okay. But you've had it. Have you had it where they go, yeah, we got to have you Friday and Saturday night in the steer wrestling or an event, and you had to split your rodeo and go, I can't get on my second head because I got another rodeo that's got 4 events elsewhere?
Yeah, no, that never happened.
No?
Never happened to me because a lot of those rodeos, most of them, 90% of them, 99% of them were one-headers.
One-headers.
Yeah.
Right.
It just got to the point where back in the East, and stuff where they just weren't getting the contestants, weren't traveling because that was the time the gas prices really started shooting up.
Yeah. Yeah.
They started just after the restrictions. They had all the gas restrictions and all that, where you could only buy gas on certain days with your license plate number and all that.
Yeah.
So shortly after that, when they just weren't getting the amount of contestants, and I almost think that Bar J was probably one of the only ones that wound up doing that. And it was just to put a rodeo on, just to make sure he had enough contestants.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that he would get away with that now, because of the way things are. But we did. I mean, we wanted to go in, we wanted a rodeo, and if we had to get on 2 head of them ranked son of guns that Bar J had, we had to go and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was how you made your living.
That's right.
How you went down the road. And talk a little bit about, we're gonna get into the 90s, and I know a lot of this kind of runs together, late 80s, early 90s, all that sort of thing. But in that time period, you talk about Jerry Bellis, you talk about building rodeos and that sort of thing. Of course, Longhorn Rodeo, he was the announcer. And talk about the level of competition in those winter building, and we're talking about, when I say building, it's a facility, right? It's an arena, indoor arena. Talk about the level of competitions. Sam and I were talking the other day, and he talked about a lot of cowboys. Corey would come out of Washington State to come down and ride the IPRA because of the amount of money that was on the line in these building rodeos. So talk about a typical rodeo. You're rolling in. All the toughs are there.
Everybody that could put on a pair of boots would be there.
Yeah.
And they were, and that's what you either got tough and got a piece of the money, or you didn't come back very many times, because number one, the entry fees were stiff enough, but the added money was there, so you had everybody, timed events, and all the rough stock riders. There were guys, and they were, the competition is different, but the competition's the same. You still got the same, but back then, and it's not an exaggeration. Right now, some of these rodeos back here, if you got 30 bull riders to enter a whole weekend rodeo, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Attica, for instance, I don't know how many they had the last time, but it wasn't, I don't even think it was that many, 20-some.
Right.
Back when I was going in the 80s and early 90s, they had 80, 90 bull riders.
Okay.
And the same thing with the horse riding. There was always, you didn't have to worry about having to have 2 head too many times, but you always had enough guys. And them Longhorn Rodeos and stuff they were tough. I mean, they made you either make it or break it,
Okay.
And so, yeah, and it wasn't just because they had money. There was nothing else going on.
Right.
In the dead of the winter, them guys out in Oklahoma and Texas, they couldn't do anything. They weren't rodeoing out there yet. So they'd come back east here. And, most of the Loretta Lynn Longhorn Rodeo, Loretta Lynn owned the rodeo company, Longhorn Rodeo Company, when I first started, got going.
Yep.
And then she sold it to Bruce Lurkey, and he was already the general manager anyway.
Yep.
And so it wound up becoming Longhorn Rodeo.
So you had Longhorn Rodeo. They put them on. You also had then, around that era, World's Toughest Rodeo. And that was IPRA too at that point. Steve Gander.
Yep.
So how many from, let's say, from January to through March, how many indoor big rodeos could you go to?
I would say that probably about 20 to 25.
That many.
Yeah.
That many. And these are big, and these are, all the toughs are coming in.
Yep.
And you said 80 bull riders. Of the 80 bull riders, how many could win?
Probably about at least a quarter of them were good enough to win first anywhere they went.
Okay. Okay.
And there was probably 3/4 of them could win money, be able to place, on anything that they had.
Yeah.
So there weren't a lot of deadbeats back there that were going up and down the road.
Yeah. So what do you remember about the livestock? Was it a drawing contest when you went to these big rodeos?
They tried not to let it be, but it was. You'd always have, back then there was always, every contractor had 2 or 3 real shining stars in their rough stock events that stood out, and you'd either want to draw them or you wanted to draw around them. I always got a kick out of these guys. I want to draw the rankest thing that they got. Well, I didn't want to draw something that was going to throw me off. I wanted something that was going to test my air and I could win on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little bit of a drawing contest, contractors constantly tried to make it better for us, and if they had something that was getting weak, they would trade it out. And I'm not complaining about it at all, but if the toughs drew the toughs, they were going to take home first place.
Yeah, yeah. And talk about the travel in the winter is way different, I have to imagine. More expensive because you're probably not staying in a truck. Some of these buildings, you're going into freezing weather. So hotels and everything else that goes with it. And in addition, bigger entry fees, as you said. So you got to win. You got to win to stay out. I got to imagine a good winter run takes the edge off of the beginning of your spring run.
Yeah, and it kind of knocks the rust off. But a lot of times with me, it was kind of strange. It seemed like some of them Longhorn rodeos, not so much with the World's Toughest for some reason, but some of them Longhorn rodeos I go to back here that would come into Ohio, the closer they'd get to home, the least I'd win. I couldn't win
Is that
nothing
right?
at, going to Cleveland or Columbus or Cincinnati and some of them. I just never did good at them. I just never had a good run at them.
Yeah.
I'd place once in a while, but most of the time when I come back home in wintertime, I was back working. I had to go to work, pay my bills that way too, until I could get out and get on the road a little bit more. So I personally never really counted on them big winter rodeos as far as helping. I went to them certainly, and I could place at them here and there, but and I've won a few of them, but it wasn't anything. And especially I remember getting so disgusted. I said, "Why can't I do anything in Ohio? We're only 6 to 8 hours away from home, and less, But it was just the way it was.
Okay. So talking of traveling, you did some pretty maximum traveling. And what I mean by that, you did extreme traveling. You went to Australia for 21 days. Talk a little bit about that experience. First off, how did that even get set up?
That came through the North American Rodeo Commission, which the North American Rodeo Commission started up. And the idea behind all this was basically kind of a team concept. And what they would do is they would take different associations, regional associations, APRA, SRA, mid-states, a lot of these regions all across the country. And if they wanted that association, wanted to belong to NARC, or the North American Rodeo Commission, they would buy into that. And then so they're champions of those events. Where a lot of them were chosen basically through NARC to go to Australia as the U.S. team to compete against the Australian team.
Is that what it was? So head to head, basically.
Yep.
So would they say, these are my 5 bareback riders, these are Australia's 5 bareback riders. Mm-hmm. You take more than 5 bareback riders, and you may get up a night, you may not. Was that?
I think that we pretty much, I don't remember how many they took in each event. I don't. There was quite a few of us that went over. There was a plane load of us. I didn't know that.
Okay.
Because we had barrel racers, we had the whole rodeo team. Okay. And but when we went over there, that was a team competition that they had whatever the amount of cowboys would fit the amount of livestock that was there for that event. Okay. And so they had them broke up basically in groups. You had Group A and Group B for the rough stock, for the bareback horses, let's say. Okay. And the team chose or somehow drew which block of animals that their team was going to compete against. And then they would match the contestant up with that animal.
Oh, they would. So it wasn't draw. So it's very similar to what they're doing in teams now in the PBR.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So they would try to put their best guy on the best animal.
Oh, wow.
And and it went down that way. Yeah. And so it was pretty much contested against contestant, head to head, U.S. against Australian, and then whatever pen that they had, they could choose and put people on that. So I don't remember if we had a break in between, or whether and we must have, because I think they would just do so many guys. I think if we took 10 contestants over, they might have split it up in a couple days, because otherwise you'd had too many of them. They probably did that. I don't know. It's been long enough. I don't.
And just one venue, or did you move about a bit and do it in different rodeo arenas?
Nope, we was Sydney, Australia at the Royal Easter Show. Okay. So that was a huge deal. Okay. I never been. New York State Fair looks like a little pumpkin roll compared to what that was. Oh man. Okay. That was huge.
Yeah. So 21 days, you're in country?
Yeah. Okay. I think we were. Okay. You know, when we first got there, it was almost probably 5 or 6 days before we actually had the competition. Okay. What we would do when we first got there, they kind of got us all gathered up, because the barrel racers didn't take any horses over. Right, the steer wrestlers didn't have any. None of the timies had their animals with them. Yeah. So what Australia did is they had gone around and they had gathered up some of the horses and stuff that we could go try. Mm-hmm. So we went out to a ranch.
Oh, you did?
There.
Okay.
Yeah. And it rained. Oh, Doug, we were going to go practice steer wrestling and see, because we had 2 or 3 horses that we could have chosen from what we were going to take and ride. And of course, when you're on their home turf, you don't get the best. Okay. But you try to figure things out, and you ride the horse and see what we can make of them. You know, see how they score and see, you know, and. So we spent a few days out there on that ranch doing that with the barrel racers. They got their horses, tried to get some of the stuff figured out before we actually went to competition. Sure.
And then how many days of rodeo? How many days, once you started, you were in country for about 5-6 days, kind of getting, I got to imagine, overcoming jet lag to begin with. Yeah. Right?
I think we either 10 or 12 days of competition.
Really? Yeah. Like day to day to day to day?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep, because they had a performance every day. Okay. Because it's during the Royal Easter Show, they had a lot of different events going on.
Oh, they did.
We were in a rugby field.
Really? The rodeo arena was set up in a rugby field. So, indoor?
Nope, outdoors. See, out there, it was their springtime. Okay. Or was it their fall? In April, I think we went out. Yeah, it would have been their fall. Okay. So they were getting ready to shut down, just like the fairs and stuff around here. Yeah. So, yeah, we were out there in April. So.
And you rodeoed on grass?
It went from dirt to grass.
Or grass to dirt.
Now, they had some kind of a track around the outside.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It was a little bit of dirt to start with, where the bucking chutes were, and then that went on to grass.
And you went on to grass.
Yeah, kind of like Pendleton does.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Pendleton?
No, that's one of my things that I wish would have done.
Yeah.
I regret not entering Pendleton.
Okay.
I never did try to go.
Yeah.
But
watching it on TV, and I can't imagine sitting on the ground, and you got this little fence, and maybe the bulls come to you, maybe they don't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So was that the first time that you competed on the grass?
No, I don't. No, we've had some rodeos back here that Andy Camp put one on up there in New Hampshire. That mountain. Attitash was on grass.
That was on grass.
Yeah,
okay.
That was on grass.
Okay.
And I think one or two other ones might have been, but not two. I think when we went to Brooklyn, Andy put a rodeo down in the Bronx and in Brooklyn, and they were on little baseball diamonds.
Okay.
So we'd been on grass before a little bit.
Before. And for the listeners, what's the difference? I mean, how does that change steer wrestling?
There's no... When you hit the ground steer wrestling on grass, as you can imagine, it's quite a lot slipperier. And you don't have anything to dig your boots or heels into to slow things down as you would on dirt,
Yeah.
And there's some racetrack rodeos that we did, that were done back here. They go to the fairgrounds, they put them on there, and it's like going out on the blacktop, and, there's just no give anywhere. So it's kind of the same thing, only you got a little bit of slime underneath when you hit that grass, and it turns, it's a little slipperier. But outside of that, everything else is basically the same as far as the steer wrestling goes.
So 10 rodeo days over there, Australia versus the U.S., who won?
Australia beat us by a point.
After 10 days?
Yeah.
A point?
And it was my fault. I'll take the blame for it.
What? Are you kidding me? 1 point?
1 point.
1 point. So how do you take the blame for that?
I got on a bull that I should have knocked holes out of, and I kind of froze up because I knew it was all on my shoulders to win it, and I choked.
Really?
Yeah. I had.
You knew it came down after 10 days.
Yeah.
How many? If you do the math, that's like what 100 runs or some crazy. I mean, 1,000 runs of everything.
Yeah.
Some crazy, and it came down to 1 point.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty exciting for the crowd, I gotta imagine.
It was, and it was back and forth the whole week. When we were there.
Really,
and it got down to the bull riding, the last bull.
Yeah,
and I bucked off one that I should have knocked. It was a practice. Yeah, I mean, really, the bull turned back. He was a little young Bremer.
Yeah,
quicker than lightning, and it was one of my style.
Yeah.
So I was tickled to death to say I would take him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because our captain kind of was the one that appointed, who kind of got on what, if you could put your opinion in, but I hadn't seen the bull before, but he had said, this bull's going to go out there and he's going to turn back and he's fast, and quick. And I said, well, that's fine. I like them kind,
Yeah.
And I went out there and I just clamped up.
Okay.
And he threw me off about 6, and I was just trying to hang on instead of riding. And they wound up beating us by a point.
So money got won. Did you win money? How did it go like that or no?
Yeah, to some extent.
It did.
There was. I think that I don't remember. We didn't make a fortune over there.
Yeah. But they paid your way.
They paid our way. It didn't cost us anything.
Fed you, put you up, all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my!
Well,
and got to see some of the country.
Yeah, a little bit. We went to when we left to go to check the timed event horses and stuff out. We took a bus. It was about a 45-minute ride on a bus to a town, and now we're in Sydney and we're headed north.
Okay.
And so we're going up through there, and then we got off the bus and got on a train.
Yeah.
It was about another hour and a half ride, the train to the next train station where we were getting off. And then from there, the guy that owned the ranch that we went to, and I can't remember the name of the mountains and stuff that was up there. He took us out to his ranch, and it was another almost 2-hour drive by car back up in, and he didn't call it a ranch. It wasn't big enough for a ranch out there.
Yeah.
It was a cattle station is what they called it.
Okay.
But
okay.
Still, probably
Yeah.
30,000 acres.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
and we got to spend some time out. And he was a bronc rider. He was a
Okay.
saddle bronc rider. Him
Okay.
and Sam become real good friends.
Okay.
And he come back here. He actually was back here before we went over there. He come
Okay.
back to try to ride broncs
Okay.
back here and did pretty good. But
Okay.
so we did get to see a little bit of it.
And with the North American Rodeo Commission putting this together in conjunction with Australia, for our listeners, when you qualified for the North America Rodeo Commission finals here in the U.S., there were international players that came in for that too, right?
Oh yeah. There's guys, Canada, Mexico, Australia. There were a few of them.
Okay.
There weren't a lot of them, but
Yeah.
there were.
And any more opportunities for this country versus another country? Did they do more of that?
Not
Mark?
too much more.
No.
Not. I don't remember. They may have done one other one.
Yeah.
Somewhere, but I think if they did, I passed on it because I was so close to trying winning the world and stuff, and it was at a time that I would have had to miss too many good rodeos.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, but that was an experience. That was a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all we're going to cover right now. We've got some other gentlemen that are starting to show up for our afternoon recording, Mike. So while I promised the listeners, and it was all on me, I promised the listeners about the 1990s, I choked. Under the pressure, I choked. So we're going to say goodbye for this episode, but we're going to pick up again. We're going to finish this up. Finish it up. I don't know. Maybe there's 10 more episodes here, Mike. I'm not real sure. But we will, I promise, get to the 90s at some point. Any final words before we say goodbye for the day?
No, we're just having fun doing this, and and bring back some of these memories. And like I told you before, Mom always said we ought to write a book, and I told her we'd probably have to edit too much of it out. But no, but that's that this is a book. This is a book. This is a book, and it's kind of fun because the whole sport of rodeo is starting to change a little bit, and I'm not saying it's changing for the worse, but the guys that started this and and got us guys going and everything, it's evolved quite a bit, you know, and it's like every other professional sport. Baseball, you watch some of the old baseball, they did it for the love of the sport.
For sure,
they weren't making a fortune, you know.
Right.
And so I kind of think rodeo's headed in the same direction.
Yeah. So the episode when we post up that's going to follow this is going to be how to describe this afternoon's recording. How do you describe the group that you put together?
This group of guys here started out as my mentors, my heroes, guys that kind of showed me the ropes a little bit to get started.
Okay.
And then turned me loose, wound me up, kicked me in the rear end, and told me to get out of here and go.
Yeah.
So that was the guys that, and there's some of them here that I really wish were here.
Yeah.
That couldn't make it, but we're gonna have a good session.
Absolutely. So BTC on the road, and I got a feeling I'm gonna be back, Mike. We're gonna do more recording here. You're gonna gather up all these folks, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. So to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode of BTC with Mike Swearingen. If you do, please share it with your friends. To make your listening easier, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Search for Beyond the Chutes and follow us. Remember, check out the New York State Rodeo Museum Facebook group page and become a member. All kinds of great pictures and great stories and great memories up there. And all these episodes that we're recording up here with all these great rodeo cowboys and cowgirls that made New York Rodeo so famous, these episodes will be up there on the New York State Rodeo Museum Facebook group page. So thank you to ParaSight Systems for your support as you help me go down the road, as you help me come up here to the Rawhide Ranch, to our BTC recording studios in the north. And remember, with ParaSight Systems, you can get your horse testing kits online at ParasightSystems.com. And remember to use our coupon BTC023 for 50% off your testing. This is Beyond the Chutes with...
Sorry.
Until next time, this is Doug Simcox. Thank you for listening.